Welcome. It's Mark Albert. I'm very happy that you're with me. Today, we're going to talk about the emotional impact of the estate planning process. It's really emotional, and there's reasons why. And I'm going to share some of that stuff right now so that we can understand it. Because a lot of times people will actually avoid estate planning because of the emotional component. And that doesn't help them. It doesn't help their family. And so we're just going to cover that together. And hopefully you'll all benefit from that. So the emotional impact of estate planning. It's a very emotional thing. A lot of things you got to deal with. Estate planning is fundamentally an emotional process, but it disguises itself as legal and as financial and tax. And it's all complex, but it's fundamentally emotional. There's an emotional component that interweaves throughout the whole estate planning process. And sometimes people tend to avoid doing the right thing in regard to that because of some of the challenges emotionally. I'm going to address it. Hopefully, we can have some practical solutions at the end. I have a few slides, and hopefully that'll help you if you have a challenge in this area, or maybe your spouse, they're the ones that are having emotional stress in this regard. So, our emotions significantly influence both the timing of when or even if we do estate planning and the content. So we're selecting the executor, power of attorney, beneficiaries. How do we move, who gets what? Oh, do we got to do equal for all the kids? This child's disowned us. There's so many emotions that we can deal with that may hinder us from moving forward. So, emotional barriers to starting the estate planning process is primarily something that forces us to avoid and procrastinate and not take action. So, the first emotion, and we're talking about the fear of mortality. There's an anxiety for most of us, this concept that eventually I'm going to die. And when we do estate planning, it tends to acknowledge that. So the very act of creating a will, the act of creating a trust, it forces a person to confront their own mortality. That can be very difficult. This can be painful, leading to avoidance and putting the planning off indefinitely. Okay. Then there's this emotional side, which is a sense where they're just overwhelmed because of the complex. It's so complex, estate planning. There's so many tax laws and rules and strategies, and you just don't understand it. And it makes it hard. Sometimes people, when they don't understand something, they have a hard time moving forward in that direction. The legal jargon, the financial details, the sheer number of decisions they have to make, it can be so overwhelmingly stressful that a person can feel paralyzed and unable to start. It is a problem because estate planning is so critical. Everyone really should do it, and sometimes our emotions get the better of us, and we want to try to understand that so we can set some things in place and move forward. Another emotion is the loss of control. And this could be very traumatic in a sense. We're basically in estate planning, we're planning for incapacity, where we're no longer able to respond, where maybe we've got an illness, or we're planning for death. And that can create difficult emotions around accepting the future where, hey, you know what? We're not in charge. And I know when I went through cancer, and I felt there was a lot of emotion built in there. We had done a number of things to prepare for an incapacitation for myself, but just the going through it is very difficult, and the thought of that can be a challenge for many of us. And some people avoid planning to maintain a false sense of control through inaction. So we don't act, and it puts a facade that we're in control, even though not planning means that the Ontario Supreme Court of Justice in Ontario, the court, will ultimately decide for you, who gets what, and you lose control if you don't do estate planning, because the government will dictate how your assets get divvied up. And if you have minor children, they'll dictate who is going to be the official guardian for those children. So it's like this sense that I feel like I'm losing control, but if you don't do it, you will lose control. And so it's a bit of a challenge there. And then this concept of, hey, I'm okay with the status quo. I'm good with that. It's the belief that everything is fine right now, so I don't need to change anything, right? A person will mentally downplay or ignore the realistic possibility of a future negative event in their life. And what happens is the brain prefers to live in the current comfortable reality of life as they know it, and unconsciously dismisses the potential risk of potentially an accident where they may be incapacitated or they may lead to death, or of a terrible illness, which will leave them vulnerable and weak and no longer able to do what they used to do, or an unexpected death, because none of us know the time of our death. It's just one of those things. And so there's also the emotional side, the fear of family conflict. I see this a lot. It's really, really common. A person can be afraid that their decisions will upset, disappoint, or spark a feud among their loved ones. And because of that, they withhold, they don't move forward. And if they do, they may be reluctant to share that. They delay planning to avoid the difficult conversations and to avoid potential conflict, which is not the best scenario. It's not the way to go, because if you do that, and then after you pass, if things were not done according to the way, may create more conflict, may create more stress for the family. So let's talk about here overcoming the emotional hurdles that that might exist in our life. And now the most effective way to integrate emotions into the planning process is to shift the focus from thinking of death, thinking of incapacitation, and we need to focus on legacy and care. So, what's my legacy going to be? Or this is an act of love, and I love my family, so I want to do this for their benefit. So when you change the focus from the emotional trauma of potential death or potential incapacitation, and you focus more on the positive side of leaving a legacy of caring for my family, it changes the emotional component in one's heart. And that's what I think a lot of us have to do. So some things you could do here is you need to frame it as an act of love. You position estate planning as the final, most responsible act of care and love that you would do for your family. And if you think about it that way, that this is a phenomenal act of love, doing this for my family to make sure they're okay, to make sure things are set up, reduce stress, and eliminate conflict, things like that. It changes the attitude of the heart as we plan and prepare, and we become more motivated to do so. Another thing here to help us here is to focus on values. When we do this, don't just focus on the dollars. Oh, we're going to do an equal share to everyone. No, focus on values. Write a letter of instruction. You could do it. The letter itself is not legally binding, but it could be a powerful emotional impact, and it explains why you did things the way you did things. Okay. And then that may give you peace of mind. It may give the kids or those that you're leaving your inheritance to an understanding and an appreciation. And it may be easier for them to accept whatever the outcome is. And then a third thing here is I would say to encourage open communication. This can be difficult to do, but if appropriate, have a family conversation, a bit of a family meeting, and manage the expectations. Allow questions, allow feedback, mitigates the risk of future conflict. And when this is done really well, it's fantastic. It's really great stuff. Okay. And the last thing I would say is you could seek a professional, an estate planning lawyer, financial advisor who specializes in estate planning, to act as this neutral third party for that type of a family meeting to discuss. And then that person can always focus on the legal and the financial, provide financial clarity to assist in that process. And these are some of the things that really can make a big impact. If emotions are the problem, if you want help in this regard, let me know. My contact information will be below, and hopefully you find this helpful. Listen, have a great day, and we'll talk to you again soon.